Does it feel like everything is unraveling for you guys now that the world realizes that you're a bunch of misfits who don't really represent the Wet'suwet'en, and that the majority of the hereditary leadership, as well as the majority of the voting band members, support the pipeline? Keean Bexte here with Rebel News. In the area where the hereditary chiefs of the Office of the Wet'suwet'en used to have a blockade, and there was an RCMP checkpoint in the whole shebang. So I came out here to actually get some answers, because it seemed like there was conflicting reports about whether or not the RCMP were actually in the area. And it turns out, after I followed an RCMP cruiser very deep into the area here, into what people have been calling the Wet'suwet'en traditional lands, really it's Crown land here west of Houston, I followed an RCMP officer and I had a quick chat with them. Now, I didn't record that because I wanted to protect their identities, and they said that the roadway is clear. There's no more blockades, either Indigenous or otherwise. There's no RCMP checkpoints, and they're just here keeping people safe. So the idea that they've been ordered to retreat off of Indigenous lands, it seems to not be the case. They didn't really know anything about them being told to not be in the area, which I found very interesting. It sounds like Justin Trudeau doesn't have control over the RCMP whatsoever. Now, I was able to speak with some local Indigenous folks because the story has been crumbling, the story carefully crafted by the mainstream media, that every single member of the Wet'suwet'en and every Indigenous person in the area is adamantly opposed to this pipeline. Well, that doesn't seem to be the case, especially after it surfaced that there are many hereditary chiefs that are not on board with the radical hereditary chiefs that are using Indigenous traditional regalia in their protest. Now, Rita George is a matriarch of her people, and she has spoken out to the Globe and Mail of all outlets. She says that she's disappointed that the traditional regalia of her people is being corrupted and dirtied in this very area that I'm in right now. We're at kilometer 28 of this road that Coastal GasLink is using to access the area that the pipeline is going to be built in. Right behind me is a makeshift camp that isn't blocking any roads, but they seem to know who I was.
What's going on?
Not much. Are you, you're part of that camp there?
You Rebel Media?
Yeah. Would you like to chat? So I'm going to go ask them what they think about Justin Trudeau saying that the blockades need to come down and it's time to quit playing games. The Prime Minister has ordered the blockades to come down after he extended many hands to speak with you guys. And if you couldn't even negotiate with Justin Trudeau, someone who's already on your side, who's already sympathetic to destroying the oil and gas industry in Canada, how are you going to get your way? What are you going to do to hold the nation hostage? I even spoke to some of the local Indigenous folks to ask them what was on their mind, whether or not they supported these blockades. Listen to this. What's your take on all of this pipeline issue going on right now?
I'm actually conflicted a lot about the pipeline issue here, because I think that LNG might actually be a good thing, but I also believe that our mountains and our streams are very, very important to protect. So I'm kind of on the fence a bit. I just wish everybody would come together and talk things out instead of forcing things. Yeah.
So one issue that a lot of Canadians have right now is the rail blockades, and it's caused a lot of anger towards both your people and the people that are actually putting the blockades together. Would you say that the people blockading railways in Ontario and Quebec, do they speak for you and your people?
I would like to think that they think that they do. Again, I'm not sure how I feel about the blockades, because I do understand that a lot of people need their resources, but this is also the only card we've been left to play too. So if you'll notice that they've come to blockading anytime anybody in the entire nation needed any help. Anytime any of us felt that we needed our voice heard, they would jump into action and block the CN. And unfortunately, it seems that's the only time that our voice is actually ever heard. And it's not just the Wet'suwet'en people or BC Indians, it's natives all across Canada, in my opinion anyway. I just think that it's a little heavy-handed, and that once we get our point across, maybe pick up stakes and then go from there. But like I said, everybody's too used to forcing everything. Nobody wants to talk.
How would the pipeline, if it does go through, how would it help with the employment in this area? Is the people struggling right now?
I don't see too terribly many people struggling a lot. What I do see the struggle with is like the opioid epidemic, stuff like that. I think that we really need to come to our roots, come home, make ourselves healthy before we can start worrying about working and putting stuff out there for everybody else as a community.
Now, I found it interesting what that woman said there about the opioid epidemic. It seems that everyone is concerned about talking about this pipeline. Everyone thinks that the Indigenous folks in this area are this one monolith, this group of people who all completely agree that this pipeline must not happen. That didn't seem to be the case with the folks that I talked to here today. It seemed like they had much more nuanced thoughts on it, and they also had concerns that nobody seems to be talking about, specifically about this opioid epidemic. Now, I'm here outside of this particular RCMP detachment that they have retreated to after a bombshell report was filed by True North. True North says that they spoke to two senior RCMP officials, one of them who was actually on the ground west of Houston, and they feel like they are being used as pawns and scapegoats by Trudeau's administration, trying to use them and blame them to let the steam out of this blockading movement. For Rebel News, in the middle of Crown land west of Houston, British Columbia, I'm Keean Bexte. If you want to learn more about what's going on here, go to fakefirstnation.com, and if you can pitch in to help our coverage about this very important topic, this probably the most important issue facing Canada right now, please go to fakefirstnation.com.